There she is. All right, come on, Morty, let's go.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Welcome back. Morty Smith is the insecure, berated, misfit grandson to Rick Sanchez, while Rick, well, has a whole host of his own problems. But that's for another day. Today we're focusing on young Mortimer. During his adventures with Rick, Morty has gone through a lot. Most of it's bad. Like, really bad. So much so that we made a list of all the horror Morty's experienced.
Come on, Morty, just take it easy. Morty's gonna be good.
Starting off our list, we have the first horrible thing to ever happen to Morty in the show. In the pilot episode, Rick and Morty are searching for mega seeds.
What is this place?
They spot a mega tree. Only problem is, the trees are below them. Luckily, Rick has a MacGuffin for this problem. That being some special grappling shoes, as Rick describes them. They can walk on any surface. Sounds snazzy, right? Well, at least it would be if you turned them on, which Morty didn't. Instead, he plummets down the cliff and horribly breaks his legs. Rick berates him before using his portal gun to get some help. All works out well though when Rick brings back a serum that repairs broken legs. At the beginning of Me Seeks and Destroy, we see Rick and Morty on a random adventure, only this one will likely mentally scar Mortimer's 14-year-old Noodle. Rick and Morty are running away from what looks like the rest of the Smith family. Rick tells the M-Dog to press a button, but Morty is hesitant to do so. However, Rick explains that they are not his family. Instead, they're actually demonic, alien-possessed future clones. Eventually, he hits a button that proceeds to melt the clones in front of him. A horrified Morty and Rick then jump back to their reality where Morty proceeds to vomit about the melty action he had to take. Ew. Morty and Rick go to Blips and Chits, a crazy high-tech arcade in Morty Night Run. As Morty is expressing his distaste of Rick's lack of morality, Rick shuts him up. He forces a helmet on Morty and doesn't explain what's happening. It's for a virtual reality game called Roy. Morty then lives a whole life as Roy. He grows up, has a family, gives up on his dreams, works in a carpet shop, gets cancer and beats cancer, only to perish when he falls off of a ladder at the shop. Morty immediately returns to reality with a lot of confusion. In order to get a better grade in math, Rick and Morty enter the dreams of Mr. Goldenfold. In the Dreamscape, if they pass away, they do so in real life too, which almost happens many times. But that's not all, folks. As they go inside the dreams of a character in Goldenfold's dream, they end up at a fetish party. However, Morty and Rick comes across a kinky dream version of Summer, Morty's sister. She offers to make an intergenerational sandwich. Yikes. The episode Morty's Mind Blowers is a treasure trove for this list.
All right, so you want to do this here or outside?
In one of the memories that Morty had erased, we see he was possessed by an alien parasite called Voltometron, which gave him cool powers, but he wasn't in charge of his own body. Rick, Beth, and Summer begin to tell Morty they love him, all to force the parasite out of Morty. Even though it was painful, at least Morty would soon get his body back. Only the love didn't last. The family got bored and began to insult Morty instead. So the worm slowly began to slip back into Morty. In the episode Raising Gazorpazorp, Morty conceives an alien child with an adult napping robot. We've all been there before. This child turns out to be half human and half Gazorpazorpian. Single dad Morty then does his best to raise his son, Morty Jr. The problem is, Gazorpazorpians are a very aggressive, destructive alien species. Morty tries to keep his son from laying waste to the human population, even confining him to the house. However, Junior escapes and carves a path of destruction. Eventually, he decides to channel his aggression into creative outlets. He then goes on to become an author of a book titled My Horrible Father. All is well in the Smith household and total recall. The family is having a meal with their Uncle Steve, only Steve is actually a telepathic alien parasite. The parasites take the form of zany characters and insert positive memories within the minds of humans. Believing Rick is a parasite, Morty aims a gun at him, only to realize that the parasites are limited to creating positive memories. So, anyone that they have bad memories of is human. The family then go on a rampage and obliterate all the parasites even though the Smiths remember the wacky characters fondly. They believed they had known each character for years. It also makes the Smith family feel rather sad that their actual family are pretty terrible people in comparison. Crumbopulous Michael is a cheery assassin alien in Morty Night Run. He just loves his job and has no problem with eliminating anyone. Due to Rick selling Michael weapons, Morty feels as though he has to stop Michael on his next job. That job being offing fart. Yeah, that's a sentence we just said. Before Michael can liquidate fart, he gets interrupted by Morty. By interrupted, we mean have a flying car crush him. Morty stumbles out of the ship only to see the damage he's done. Not something he planned to do after all. After panicking for a bit, he releases fart and escapes. In the Ricks Must Be Crazy, Rick uses a Microverse to power his car battery. However, the Microverse scientist Zeep Zandflorp creates a miniverse. The miniverse then creates a tiny verse which Rick, Morty, and Zeep get stuck in. With no means to escape, Rick and Zeep's rivalry begins to get destructive. So Morty goes off and lives with the Tree People. Many months later, Morty and the Tree People bump into Rick and Zeep. All seems well, until Morty begs Rick for a way out. He describes that the Tree People are backward savages. Morty, Summer, and Beth are captured by an alien. Beth is forced to choose between which of her children should be spared. Morty and Summer don't have to float in a bubble for too long before Beth makes her choice. Immediately, she picks Summer to live. She barely thought about it. Luckily, Rick ports in and saves everyone. However, there is a massive metaphorical elephant in the room after the events. During the episode M. Night Shyam Aliens, Rick and Jerry find themselves stuck in an alien simulation, all to get the formula for Rick's concentrated dark matter. At the end of the escapades, drunk Rick walks into Morty's room. He seems to have missed his young, naive grandson during the adventure. Aww, but that soon changes. Quickly, Rick grabs a knife and threatens Morty. He demands to know if he's a simulation and presses the blade against Morty's terrified neck. Unstable Rick then stops with his threats and tells Morty that he's a good kid. Afterwards, he promptly passes out into a drunken slumber, leaving a very confused and aghast Morty to wonder what has become of his life. Look Who's Purging Now is a fun parody of The Purge, just in case the name didn't give that away. In this adventure, Morty loses his cool a couple of times. Firstly, the lighthouse keeper forces Morty to listen to his cliched screenplay.
She's a woman, he's a man. The city burns in the background as he takes her in his arms.
This leads to Morty pushing him down the stairs in rage. Later, Rick and Morty are forced to defend themselves from the citizens as they're purging. Only Morty goes on a rampage. While dressed in an Iron Man-like armor, they obliterated the Purgers. Rick had to knock Morty out just to stop him. Later on, with his wits regained, Morty remembered all the mindless destruction he had committed. Grandparents are great. They have great stories of their lives, they make great food, and they make you smuggle sci-fi items in your bum. Wait, what? In the pilot episode, we get the honor of seeing Rick forcing Morty to do just that. He gets Morty to pop the pointy megaseeds in his badonkadonk to get them back to their dimension. However, the plan is thwarted almost immediately by the dimensional security. After escaping the security, they manage to get home. Due to Morty having the seeds between his buns for so long, they dissolve into his system, which makes Mortimer a super genius. Briefly, he then loses motor skills and brain functionality for 72 hours. He gets to lie on the floor and sputter away while Rick does a crazy monologue. Good old grandparents. Imagine finding out that the multiverse exists. That out in the verse there are infinite versions of yourself. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Well, now imagine seeing hundreds of your doppelgangers tied to the front of a structure whilst they're being tortured. The intrigue is gone, hasn't it? Well, this is what Morty got to see in close Rick counters of the Rick kind. Beyond seeing this horror with his own eyes, Morty also gets to hear that his mentor had come up with the same plan. In Rick Potion number 9, Rick develops a love potion for Morty, only it mutates due to the flu virus. Everyone that's infected falls madly in love with Morty and wants a piece of the M-Dog. The virus mutates further with Rick's meddling. This leads to the infected becoming gross Cronenberg monsters. Everyone Morty has known and loved are changed forever. Only his family are spared. Instead of finding a cure, Rick and Morty abandon the Earth and jump over to another dimension to start again. Ruben's life was tough, so much so that he let Rick build a theme park inside him during Anatomy Park. When a problem with the park crops up, Morty shrinks and slips inside Ruben to see what's happening. Morty has to face off against all sorts of nasty diseases as they've escaped the parks. The number of survivors dwindle as more and more fall victim to the park's attractions. Morty even has to leave Dr. Xenon Bloom behind to escape the collapsing body of Ruben. Bloom gets overwhelmed by the aggressive E. coli as Morty watches on. In Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender, we get to see Morty hang out with his heroes, the Vindicators. They're a Justice League, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy parody superhero team. But Rick's jealousy of Morty's enthusiasm for the group and Rick's alcoholism play a big factor in the story. During a drunken night, he becomes Jigsaw and creates a Saw-esque challenge for the group to survive. Morty has to watch on as Rick humiliates and lethally dismantles his idols one by one, only for Morty to find out he wasn't the reason for Rick's jealousy. Instead, Rick wanted the Vindicators to treat Noob better. As we see in the memory bank, each of the removed memories are color coordinated. The red memories seem to be the ones that Rick had taken by force. Usually this was done when he did something embarrassing, like skiing into a tree, losing at checkers, or taking things for granted. There could be loads of important memories that Rick stole from Morty like some kind of memory goblin, all to save face after an embarrassing moment. Having your parents divorce is hard no matter your age. To deal with their anger, Morty and Summer join Rick in his travels. They end up in a post-apocalyptic world in Rickmancing the Stone. In order to win in the fighting dome, Morty is injected with the muscle memory of a detached arm by Rick. Yet the arm, named Armathy, has motivations of his own. Morty and Armathy grossly destroy all the challengers, until Armathy spots the man responsible for his demise. He takes the soldier out brutally, but he gathers the location for the soldier's boss, a slave owner. Morty is helpless as Armathy drowns the slaver. Once his mission was complete, Armathy departs, but the slaver recovers. After the horrific events in Rick Potion number 9, Rick and Morty had to find a new planet because curing the virus was beyond C-137 Rick's ability or motivation. Anyway, they discover a universe in which alternate Rick and Morty cured the virus, only to be blown up due to a random Rick invention. So C-137 Rick and Morty stroll through the portal and into their new lives. Only Morty didn't know the horror that awaited them. Morty saw the decimated bodies of his doppelganger and a version of his granddad. Rick then pressured the traumatized Morty into digging a grave in the garden for the Morty body. In Morty Night Run, Morty frees Fart from his prison. Fart then sings a snappy song to get Morty on his side. The sentient cloud goes on a journey with Rick and Morty to escape the authorities. Fart extinguishes the lives of many people along their escape. Morty manages to conceal Fart and take him to a suspicious-looking portal. The gassy character then spills the beans on his plan to eliminate all carbon-based life forms. So Morty asks Fart to sing again, only for Morty to muffle Fart. He shoots the mean flatulence-like organism to save the universe. This memory that was sucked out of Morty's noggin is probably the most disturbing. We're of course talking about Moonspiracy. In this memory, Morty is looking at the moon through his telescope only to see a man on the moon smile menacingly at him. He tells his family, who say it was probably a smudge. The next day, the man on the moon, Gordon Lunis, becomes a guidance counselor at Morty's school. Morty tells his principal about what he saw. Lunis is fired from his job after accusations of being a pedophile. Morty's principal had misinterpreted what Morty said. Lunis then promptly ends his own life. Morty checks his telescope and realizes it was actually a smudge. In Risky Business, a party got out of hand. They ended up teleporting the whole house onto an alien planet. Rick told Morty that in order to get back, he needed to get some Calaxian crystals. So Morty, Nancy, and Abradolf Linkler, a clone between Hitler and Lincoln, went off on their expedition. As they find the crystals, they're attacked by a savage alien. Linkler saves their lives, but he slowly perishes from his injuries. The broken Morty and Nancy return to Rick. Linkler's death wouldn't be in vain, except it was. Rick crushed the crystals and snorted them to get high. He apparently had the means to get home the entire time. In the episode Me Seeks and Destroy, Rick lets Morty run their adventure. They go on a fantasy quest to help a poor village. On their travels, they end up in a pub. Morty goes to the bathroom and chats to a friendly Jellybean. But the scene soon takes a sharp, dark turn. Jellybean begins to force himself onto Morty. After begging fails, Morty resorts to defending himself by beating up Jellybean. When he returns to Rick, his granddad is suspicious of Morty's frightened behavior. At the end of the episode, we discover the village is ruled over by Jellybean. Rick and Morty depart quickly, only for Rick to shoot Jellybean and blow him up. Picture the scene. The Galactic Federation have left Earth after taking it over. Your grandfather escapes space prison, and your parents are getting divorced. It's a bit of a mixed bag, really. However, it turns out that your mentor/grandfather is responsible for all the recent bad in your life. Well, that's what Morty had to experience in the Rick Shank redemption. When Rick gets back to Earth, he goes off on an unstable tirade to Morty. Rick tells him that he orchestrated Beth and Jerry's divorce and destroyed the Federation. Rick did all this so he can keep Morty as his sidekick and hostage on adventures, as well as be the undisputed patriarch of the family. And that's a wrap. Do you feel sorry for Morty now? Good. You should. If you don't feel bad, well, we're a little scared of you. Are there any other terrible moments in Morty's life? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below. We read them. We pinky promise. Most of our writers sob as they do. Bless them. Remember to subscribe and click the teeny tiny bell to stay notified. Then we can squanch you some more Rick and Morty content. Finally, thanks for watching. We love you.